Hello and welcome to an all new episode of the Up the Coast podcast. As always, I'm your host, Tyler. And in today's edition of NCAA tournament previews, we are going to go into the first four game between SMU and Miami of Ohio. And so I am joined here by Kethan Babu of the Miami Student newspaper, The Miami Student, to go into this Red Hawks team. Kethan, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we were chatting a little bit before. I want to talk to somebody who has been on the ground with this team from the beginning, who really knows the ins and outs far before the rest of us hopped onto this Red Hawks bandwagon. And I mean, before we kick off, it's just kind of funny to me how the narrative has shifted with this team, where it feels like everyone is just waiting to kind of watch them go down. I mean, the betting line for this game just exploded immediately. We still don't even know if BJ Edwards is going to play for SMU, but this Miami team, had they just gone like 27-4 and then won the MAC tournament, we'd just be sitting here talking about how dangerous of a 12 seed they are with these older veteran guards. Instead, everyone's just sitting there just kind of waiting for them to fail.
Absolutely. And you kind of see that with Akron now, obviously winning the MAC and getting in. Akron has a little bit of history going 3 years in a row, making it to the dance. But I agree with you totally. We are very much a bubble team. And to be quite frank, we didn't play good against UMass. So obviously our last game doesn't look great on our resume, but strength of schedule aside, I just wrote a column about this a couple weeks ago. Net rating aside, they won 31 games in a row. And how many Division One teams do that? I've only won this year. So the discourse has been interesting. I'm glad that we made it into March Madness, but to be a first four game, it's puzzling, but I can't complain too much. It's been a while since we've been in.
It kind of felt like it was headed this way to me the whole time, though, that unless they went undefeated, they were just going to throw them at the bottom of the at-large pool because, I mean, I just put up their Ken Palm. They're below High Point. Like, this is not a very analytically friendly team, but at some point, wins versus losses just have to matter as a stat. When you lose 15 less games than Auburn, you deserve to be above Auburn.
And speaking as someone that loves statistics, I'm a big math guy. I love looking at numbers and figures and algorithms, trying to figure out which teams are most likely to get in. At a certain point, you have to forgive all of that and realize this team didn't lose in the regular season. It doesn't matter what conference they're in. This is a Division One athletic team that didn't lose a single game between November and at least the start of March. Obviously, again, they got one less on the record now. But during the regular season, they went flawless. And analytics aside, standings aside, rankings aside, the fact that there was even a debate of whether they would get in at all was preposterous to me. I'm a little biased, obviously, as a student here, but just looking objectively, it just seems like why would they not be in?
Yeah, I mean, I wish they were playing like an SEC team. I'd be rooting hard for them, just as a fan of the story and a fan of kind of proving the haters wrong. But going into this team, one of the things that makes it so dangerous, like I mentioned, it's this old backcourt, and I was delighted the month of February getting to watch Peter Suter play basketball. So just kind of go into his game, what makes him so dangerous, so special.
Yeah, absolutely. And what makes him so special kind of applies to the rest of the team as well. So at the end of last season, we lost three players to the transfer portal, which obviously hurt. We lost Cam Kraft was our second leading scorer. We lost Reese Potter, who didn't play too much, but he was 7'1". Losing him is going to hurt. But you see these returners coming back. Peter Suter, to be quite frank, he could have gone to a power program last year. He was our leading scorer. He played great, and he stayed at Miami. Ian Elmer, a similar story. He stayed the retention that this team has and the way that they talk about Travis Steele shows that they're buying into this program. They're not here to make a bag. They're not here to play average or above average mid-major basketball and then jump to a higher conference. They're here because they believe in what this program is. And Peter Suter is a big part of that, transferring in from Bellarmine and playing his junior year here. But his progression from a new incoming transfer to the leader and the captain of this team has been remarkable to see in the offseason. He's a voice in the locker room that you can tell he's experienced. You can tell that he's been around the block. And like you mentioned, I mean, his threat from both range and from the paint is remarkable as well. And he's also a very unselfish player. We have a lot of unselfish players on the team, but I would argue he's more so. Maybe it's because he's a senior, maybe because he's a captain, but he's not afraid to pass the rock around. He's not afraid to let the freshmen or let some of the other players get in on the action. So his diverse skill set and also his enthusiasm. He's the player that's going to die for balls. He's a player that's going to put in his all. He'll play 40 minutes straight if he has to. He is going to buy into this team. He's going to buy into what Steel has built. And I think it's a testament to the foundations that they built. This is Steele's fourth year, and it's pretty incredible to see the progression of how much the players are buying in. Suter's a hallmark of that.
Yeah, I mean, a bigger, more physical guard, something that's worked extremely well at the MAC level. I think as we start to think about the tournament, that's a big question mark. But this matchup specifically, I assume that BJ Edwards will be the one to draw that assignment. It just comes down to that never ending mystery of is BJ Edwards going to actually play in this game? And if he doesn't, I'm not sure SMU actually has the proper guy to throw at Suter. They'll try Jaron Pierre, who's a little bit bigger, but even he may not be able to deal with him. And this could be, and Tennessee might be a whole different story if Miami wins this game, but SMU is just not particularly suited to play against this team from what I've been trying to piece together.
It's true. Suter's matchup is going to be interesting, but it also is interesting that we just have a deep bench. If Suter's going to have trouble, if he's going to be defended well all night, then the team's going to look to Luke Skaljak, a sophomore. They're going to look to Brant Byers, who's a starter, but he'll get more playing time. They'll look to Antoine Wolford. He's our big guy who's going to get into the paint. So this is a team that's not going to rely on just its starting five or even its six or seven players. They're going to rely on the whole roster. You'll see guys like Tyler Robbins, who doesn't get that much playing time, but he's tall, he's big, he can get in and score when needed. Again, it's kind of a testament to how many players have bought into this program, how many players are a key piece, rather than just a bench warmer. They'll get in and they'll play their heart out. Guys like Justin Kirby, Trey Perry, they're freshmen. They probably didn't expect to play this much their freshman year, and they have. So if one player is going to be in trouble, then we'll switch it out. Steele's emphasizes a deep bench. He's emphasized it last year. He's certainly emphasized it this year of having multiple guys that you can rely on as opposed to his starting five.
Yeah, and you mentioned Lucas Skaljak, who just in the small handful of games I've watched, I genuinely thought was like their second or third best player. I was almost kind of surprised to dig into the numbers, realize that he really is more of a young sixth man. What's he bringing to the table here besides just playmaking, which he is an excellent vision and touch, but what else can he really do?
You mentioned it great. He's that great sick man, like I just mentioned, where if one player is going to have trouble, he'll shift in. I would argue, and there are several plays you could argue this for, that Luke Skowronek is our best three-point shooter. Just the way that he shoots, and I'll tell you the truth, I don't have his numbers memorized off the top of my head, but if you look at his highlights, I mean, he's hitting shots from the logo. He's hitting shots when he's covered, but he's behind the arc. He's making shots that you wouldn't expect out of a sophomore in college, maybe out of a senior, or maybe out of a sophomore at a SEC team or a Big Ten team, not from someone in mid-major who was a freshman last year, So his threat from range is remarkable, and he's also very similar to Suter, where he's unselfish. He's not someone, quite frankly, he's a little bit of a smaller guy. He's not going to be able to drive it to the rim, but he'll be able to get close, and he'll be able to pass the ball off to Wolfork or pass the ball off to Suter. But if you leave him open for range, he's gonna hit two out of three of his shots. I mean, he is accurate.
So the number one key is we just go through the great upset teams of the last 20 years, these mid and low majors that win games. It's getting hot from three. Miami was the second best three-point shooting team in the country, percentage-wise this year. In fact, they were just an outright extremely efficient offense in total. Or sorry, I'm looking at the chart wrong. Number two on the season from 2-point percentage, still an extremely good number 22 from three. But one of the most fascinating things when I started digging into the stats are these awesome shooters who are big. And you mentioned Brant Byers at 39%, 6'8", 200-pound sophomore. Ian Elmer, 6'6" at 43%. It's kind of odd just to see guys at this size who could shoot the ball at this level. Normally, they would have just gotten poached in the portal by this point.
That's true. That's true. The dynamic nature of these players, I'm glad you put it perfectly, actually. They'll be able to score from range, but if you block them, good luck stopping him from driving to the rim. And the protection from the portal largely comes from the foundation, again, that Steele's built. He's got the same coaching staff they had 4 years ago. He's got largely the same players. Again, we lost three players to the transfer portal. I don't even know if we lost anyone to the transfer portal the year before that. Uh, to be clear, we weren't that good at that point, but losing three players at our level was surprising for me, at least. I would have thought that we have multiple players that could have gone on to bigger programs, or at the very least could have gone on to similar programs and had a larger role. And you didn't see that. You saw players that um, loved what they saw here, that loved what they saw at a Steel. So it's a testament to the recruiting and it's a testament to the retention and the foundations at Steel. And credit to Jonathan Holmes, Christian Smith. I'm blanking on the other coach, but the coaching staff as a whole has done a great job of building those foundations where it was a rocky first year or two. Then since then, it's been remarkable, setting program record after program record. Um, and again, I think the players just see something here that they believe they can build on, and making March Madness is a good step in the right direction. Obviously, their aspirations are bigger, but it shows that this program has potential.
So, talk to me a little bit about Antoine Wolfhook, someone that you have mentioned in passing here. Top 30 in the country in 2 point percentage. Seems like he's really the guy who's driving that elite inside the arc scoring.
Yeah, he's a player where there are some players, Suter, you'll notice him getting hot. Wolford, I almost feel like it's a blink and you miss it. You'll look away from the scoreboard, and next thing you know, he's got 15 points, he's got 8 assists, 7 rebounds, something like that. You're just like, oh, how did he even do that? He's a key player in the sense that he fits the offensive scheme very well, obviously as a big man, but also just as a team player. Again, these guys are unselfish. You won't see a more unselfish group than these Red Hawks, and he is a very good example of that. But having someone like him, where he's got Big Ten experience transferring in from Rutgers, I don't know quite about his participation while at Rutgers, but coming in as a big man and being able to drive to the rim, again, he's a player that you can't stop. And he's also very accurate from free throw range. I don't know if he showed that last week against UMass, but even if you foul him, he's still going to get points on the board. So he's just another cog in the machine where he's going to fit this role very well. He's going to do his job and he knows what his role is.
So this Miami offense, just the profile of it really kind of reminds me of like a low grade version of Louisville, which is somewhat helpful for figuring out this matchup because they played SMU twice this year. The regular season meeting was the single worst game of defense I watched in all of college basketball this year. I honestly, I'm not sure who that actually benefits in this game because SMU loves making their way into the 90s if Boopy Miller can just kind of run around and chuck threes all game. But this awesome shooting Miami team, they play at a high tempo. They don't take quite the amount of threes that the Cardinals do. But what really kind of throws me off is SMU met Louisville in the ACC tournament last year. Both teams shot horribly. It was a 62 to 58, just ugly slugfest. And I'm really wondering if it gets down to that point because SMU has been so uncomfortable in those types of games, but they do have big physical ACC athlete forwards. Can Miami win this game if it finishes out in, say, like the mid 60s?
That's a great question. And I think two positives for Miami. The first one is that Miami is not unfamiliar with close games. They've played, what is it, 3 or 4 overtime games now. 3 of them were in the conference or in the Mid-American Conference. And I don't know the exact number, but the amount of one possession or two possession games they've had is more frequent than blowouts for these Red Hawks. So they know, and I asked Steele this in the loss against UMass. He said he wasn't necessarily nervous about losing that game until the final 30 seconds where it was just out of control. Um, so having that experience of playing these close games is going to help. Number two is it's not at Miami, but it's at Dayton, and that's essentially it should be a home game for Miami. So Dayton, I checked, is 50 minutes away. SMU's got a trip, obviously, but having that game in Southwest Ohio should draw a strong home crowd. And Miami thrives in that home crowd. They were undefeated, almost undefeated at home last year. They were undefeated at home this year. And feeding off that crowd is going to help. I think that's a large part of why we lost against UMass. The crowd support wasn't great there. It was fantastic from our standards, but it just wasn't 100% there. But having a crowd that's chanting, Miami, Miami, or having the offensive shouts or cheering on the Red Hawks is going to help this team. And they learn I hope, I suppose, that they learn their mistakes from UMass where they weren't quite as physical. They were taking unnecessary risks. They were taking unnecessary three-point shooting, especially in the second half. These are mistakes that Steele is going to iron out. I trust in him. And just again, having that home crowd, they're looking for a redemption. They're looking for this team where many were arguing they shouldn't have made March Madness at all. They have something to prove. And winning against SMU, I think, is step one to that.
Ethan, you're missing one piece with that crowd because this is something I've thought about as well. Dayton people hate Miami. So this is going to be a split crowd. Like the Dayton fans are going to root for SMU at this game, and I don't think people realize that.
I do, I do. Maybe I'm an optimist at the end of the day, so I hope that at least some part of that crowd realizes that if they can't support Dayton, they can support the team that's less than an hour away. They can support a team that was undefeated in the regular season. They can support a team that has a chance to, go on a run in March Madness. Again, that Tennessee game, we'll have to see what happens. But maybe the optimist in me hopes that at least some of the Dayton crowd can change their alliances for at least one night.
All right, two questions for you here before we wrap it up. Number one, who is going to be the most important defensive player for the Red Hawks in this game?
Ooh, Ooh, that is a great question.
Because I'm still just torn on what Miami would be capable of doing if this is a 72-70 game, a 68-66 game. That's where I'm not sure if they
I
can
get
still win it.
I guess one guy, and again, to be clear, I don't have the recent stats memorized for me, but Ian Elmer has been a pretty consistent defensive guy. He's physical like Peter Suter, but he'll go up and grab defensive rebounds. He'll go for blocks. He'll be aggressive when he's guarding his man or guarding his zone, wherever the scheme is. He'll be great. I love Luke Skjaljic on defense as well, to be honest. Again, he's not a starter, but he'll get minutes in there and he'll be great at guarding his person. Between those two, I also there's too many guys to say that would be impactful on defense. Peter Suter will be impactful. Antoine Wolford, just for his sheer strength and his height, is going to be impactful. Um, so I guess a combination of those guys. I know that wasn't one player like you were hoping for, but I guess that's just kind of how this team works.
Well, Woolfolk seems like he'll be particularly important too, just because going through the numbers, the one thing Miami is good at defensively is keeping the other team off the boards.
Hmm
71st in the country defensive rebounding percentage. SMU loves hammering the offensive glass. So Woolfolk against Samet Igatolu is going to be something I'll be watching out for. See if Igatolu can get some of those cheap second chance baskets that he's always hunting for. But last question here for you. We take Peter Suter out of the equation. And you know what? I'm going to take Brant Byers out of the equation too. Who is the wild card that if we're coming out of this, Miami has just won this game. They're doing John Rothstein's doing the post game interview, and he's got someone else from Miami standing there with him. Who has the best chance to be that superstar in this game?
Oh man, that is another fantastic question. I'll go with two options here. One is Ian Elmer again, because he's a player, he's kind of like Wilfork in the sense where he'll be very quiet in his success. There'll be nights where he scores 6 points, 8 points, and there'll be nights where he scores 18, 20 points. He's a wild card in that sense where he'll either go off or he'll just be a consistent player. So if he goes off, then I don't understand how any team can stop this Miami offense because when he's hot, then the whole team is hot. And he's another threat from three-point range. I should have mentioned him earlier, but when he gets hot from range, you can't stop him. He's number one. Number two, I would go with one of the freshmen, either Trey Perry or Justin Kirby, because like I mentioned earlier, they are freshmen that on any other team would barely see the court, but on this team, they're going to be seeing the court 20 minutes, maybe even more than that. And they'll be scoring in the double figures. Justin Kirby scored in the double figures in most of his last couple games. So again, if you get the younger guys involved, you get the younger guys active, then how are you going to stop this team? I don't understand how you could because again, they're not Justin Kirby has started several games, but if you get your bench warmers active, then your starters are going to feed off that. The rest of the bench is going to feed off that. And for a crowd that I don't know if the school is going to shuttle Miami fans over or Miami students over, but for a
I
crowd
would
that
think they
should
would
be,
need to.
I would assume
It's
so.
too
I haven't
close
heard too
not
much
to.
about it. Yeah, I would assume so. But for a crowd that should be largely Miami fans, this team is going to need to feed off that energy. And I think the freshmen do that most. Trey Perry is a guy that if ESPN is going to use a photo of any player, they're going to use him because he loves the photo. He's very photogenic. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but the way that he shouts or the way that he screams at the crowd and gets them hype, any photographer is going to take that and use it.
So, just keys to the game as we're kind of going through this, popping into my head. Just a really simple, because this works for a lot of SMU games, and I don't think Miami's going to be any exception. If one of these teams just clearly outshoots the other one from three, then we probably didn't even need to have this whole conversation. That'll likely decide it. And then just that matchup between Igatolu and Wolfirk, just to see who can kind of win that battle on the glass. Is Igatolu going to be able to get 10 to 12 cheap points in this one? And uh, anything else do you feel like we should be adding on to that list?
I think you nailed it pretty clearly on the head. Whatever team is going to have the hottest hand from 3-point range, and whatever team is going to grab the most rebounds. So we got killed on rebounds. I think on both sides, but especially on defensive rebounds last game, or sorry, UMass's offensive rebounds, where they scored probably 30 some second chance points. If they can control that, then my SMU is going to be in trouble, in my opinion.
Holy God, I didn't know how bad it was. It was 41-24 UMass.
Oh wow. Yeah, that broke
Holy
my heart.
crap.
That broke my heart. I was at
Yeah.
that game and yeah.
Well, Kethan, where can all the good people find your work if they want to learn more about this Red Hawks team?
I'm on Twitter. It's Kethan Babu _04. Uh, I'm also on Instagram. I don't post too heavily on there, and I have a LinkedIn just under Kethan Babu.
Yeah, everyone go follow a college student who's putting out some good work right now. Go click that follow button. Kethan, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for the invite, man.